so much for having us.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Thank you, thank you. Everybody doing tonight?
All right.
All right. All right, we just gonna go over some info. See here. I'll get a cord.
Your computer went dead?
Yeah, it's about to go dead.
Okay.
You might be. Peace, y'all. Want to give y'all a minute to get in. I know we just started it, so peace, peace, peace. Isn't it beautiful in here? It's all colorful. Is it working? I was not plugged in.
Look like you scared.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
For the computer, this computer, my computer, yeah.
Give me that here. Let's go around. Yeah.
You got it? You need one?
Mm-hmm.
Mike. How long?
You need some water?
Let's see.
It's 20 people in. He looking for that right there by your foot. Thank you, God. Is your computer on?
Yeah, I think it's charged. I can't tell because
Oh,
I
okay.
got to screw it.
You think you could talk louder?
Yeah, I mean, I did last time. So,
He said it. Yeah, that would be
Test 1, 2. Yeah, 1, 2.
all right, thank you. All right, so today the lecture is going to be on the Aboriginal God science. Aboriginal, indigenous. All right, that's what we'll be getting into. Now, of course, we all heard in school, we was taught about Pangea when all the continents were together. And they state that this happened over 200 million years ago where they were all together. Somehow, which they don't know, but they say because of some tectonic plate movement within the earth caused the splitting or breaking apart of the continents, right? This is what we all heard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once again, that was 250 million years ago. 200 to 250 million years ago. What I'm getting ready to drop on you is information that goes even further back than that, when all the continents were together and there was still life upon this planet in human form. All right, so we got the four who came out with what they call the out of Africa and the hominid ape theory. All right, the four is Francis Gallat, Charles Darwin, of course, who we are taught much about, Paul Broca, and Thomas Huxley. All right. Now, this is where they come into information dealing with that, AKA African descent, the out of Africans, and that the apes turning into humans. All right. Well, Dr. Khaled said it best. He said that Africa is not our home. Africa is our throne. And from our throne, we ruled our home, which is the whole 196,940,000 square miles of the planet Earth. You know, what do you want to claim? You just want to claim a spot or the whole thing? All right, so you got to come to that conclusion. So when we go to a book called Forbidden Archaeology, all right, it's called The Hidden History of the Human Race by Michael Creedmoor and Richard L. Thompson. There's a passage in there in which that speaks about a groove sphere. All right, from the Precambrian, South African miners have found hundreds of metallic spheres well underground, and at least one of which had 3 parallel grooves running across the equator. According to the scientists, the spheres are found in pyrophilic rock, which is mined in West Transvaal, South Africa, which is 2.8 billion years old. All right, remember, the landmass broke apart 200 to 250 million years, but they are finding objects that was man-made. That means we had the skills of smelting metal. We're talking about 2.8 billion years ago. And this is what it says. It says the spheres are not natural objects, and their origin is unknown. They obviously intelligent beings. Now, since I don't have a projector, but I will show you this. These are the spheres in which they're referring to. 2.8 billion years. And this is made from some type of iron ore, which they have yet to rediscover. Well, it would make sense because of the fact. It would make sense because during this time, the oxygen content within the atmosphere was more than 35%, as compared to today, where it is merely 21% and falling. All right, so this was found in South Africa for the cloak drop spheres, right? You know, Europeans always named something after themselves. So you get the Scientific American magazine, and it says a metallic vase from Precambrian rock. The June 5th, 1852 issue of the Scientific American magazine, it says, contain a report about a blasting carried out at Meeting Hill Rock in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Now this was in Dorchester, Massachusetts. So we came from Africa, and this was 2.8 billion years ago when we were smelting metals, to now we are coming into the United States. Of course, the United States is a corporation. America is the actual name, all right? And that's why it's of America. America is not of the United States, all right? So, your position, you are the original Americans, as we'll get into in a few minutes. But here, it says a blast disgorge tons of rock described by the United States Geological Survey as putting stone over 600 million years old. And a bell-shaped vessel, metallic vessel, was blown out of the rock that was about 4 inches high with carving, which was covered with exquisite carving, indicating the presence of artistic metal workers over 600 million years ago. Now that is 400 million years before the continental drift, right? So, this is how this metallic vase or vase look, bell shaped as you see. 600 million years old.
Wow.
600 million years old, right here in America, in North America, what is now called Dorchester, Massachusetts. But yet they would tell you that man only evolved 300,000 years ago from the apes.
Is there a certain name for that bill?
No, it don't have a certain name. It is Forbidden Archaeology by Michael Creedmoor and Richard L. Thompson. And it's called Forbidden Archaeology, the Hidden History of the Human Race. Hidden History of the Human Race. A lot of these finds, you would actually discover they were hidden from us by the Smithsonian. Okay? Now, one of the landmark intellectual achievements of the late 20th century is a book which is still by Richard L. Thompson and Michael Creedmoor, but this portion is called The Hidden History of the Human Race. This is condensed. This is the condensed version of the Forbidden Archaeology, because that book was about almost the size of almost 2 phone books. All right, so this is what it says. Humans have been walking the earth for hundreds of millions of years. The hidden history of the human race. L. Thompson and Michael Creedmoor. It says over the past 200 years, the scientific establishment has selectively ignored and suppressed and forgotten some remarkable artifacts and bones that contradict the dominant view of the human origin and iniquity. It says evolutionary prejudices have served as a source of informational filtering system that has left us with a radical, incomplete set of facts that build for building our ideas about human origin. And the hidden history of the human race is a call for change in today's arbitrarily rigid mindset, of course, of the archaeologists and anthropologists. It says, deploying a unexpectedly great number of convincing facts, deeply illuminating with critical analysis, readers will find themselves compelled to rethink our understanding of the human origin, identity, and destiny. Well, this is Michael Tillinger. This was found in South Africa also, right? So I'll get back in a second, but this and you see how large this footprint is.
Wow.
At one time, we stood at a height of 36 feet tall and shrunk. You have documentation of 25 feet, 18 feet, down to 12 feet, or 16 feet down to 12 feet, down to feet, in which that we still have human beings who are still 7 feet tall to this day. Most of them are basketball players or played basketball at one time. All right, so an example. This is what is also from the book. It says Antelope Springs, Utah. All right, so this is once again right back here in America. Remember, we just finished saying that they found at vase. It was dated back over 600 million years ago. Well, they found footprints that dated back almost as far as that too. Here it is. In Utah, prints of man wearing shoes in which the left foot has trodden on a troglodyte, a creature of 440 million years ago. In St. Louis, Missouri, footprint of Permian rock dated back to 200 million years ago. Kentucky, footprint in what is called Pennsylvania rock, dated back 200 million years old. In Suppression County, Nevada, a shoe print showing evidence of a well-cut and double-stitch leather sole in Triassic limestone, 160 to 195 million years ago. In Glen Rose, Texas, footprint in what is called Cretaceous rock, dated back to 70 million years old. Fisher Canyon, Nevada, a shoe print which clearly traces a strong thread in a cold steam dated back 12 million years old. So not only have we been wearing shoes for at least 440 million years, it has been found in rocks. And the Smithsonian and different others who work for these private foundations, such as the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and others, you know, they're the ones in which that are hiding this information. Mm-hmm. All right, but if you get this book, it's called The Gods and Spacemen in the Ancient West. All right, Gods and Spacemen in the Ancient West is by Raymond Drake. All right, and I'm gonna be showing y'all the pictures periodically right now. All right. But Raymond Drake states this. Look what he states.
That the Pygmies inhabited Earth for 30 million years.
Right. He states that the Pygmies, who they refer to as the Pygmies, we know them as the Twa people. All right. That's who we know them by, as the Twa people. All right. They inhabit Earth for at least 30 million years. This is in that book. So who was the gods and spacemen in the ancient West, according to Raymond Drake? Well, you get another book, Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man by Albert Churchward. He states that the Twa and the oldest living people on the face of the planet Earth. This is what he says. Right? The Twa, or who he referred to as the Pygmies, are the oldest living, or the original and the oldest living people on the planet Earth. So when we talk about who's the original man, based on the Nation of Islam teachings or the Nation of Gods and Earth teachings, and they say the original man is the Asiatic black man, well, the Albion, the European, verifies that because it's right here, which they have written about over the last 150 years. All right, so who are the Pygmies? Of course, we know them to be the 4-foot tall people nowadays within Rwanda and Uganda, portions of Africa. At one time, they were spread it out more abundantly throughout the earth. Where? Well, let's see. They say right here, Pygmies, term known for a variety of ethnic groups worldwide. Anthropologists defines Pygmies as a group who adult men grows to less than 150 centimeters or 4 feet 11 inches in average height. A member of the slightly taller group termed Pygmoid or Pygmoid, all right, or who they refer to now as the Negroid, right? The best known Pygmies are the Aka, the Ifa, the Mbutu of Central Africa. There are also Pygmies in Australia, all right, Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Brazil, and they also refer to as Negritu of Southeast Asia, hence the term Asiatic. The remains of at least 25 miniature humans who lived between 1,000 and 3,000 years were found on the island of Palau in Malaysia or Micronesia. All right, so right here we go back to the book written by Albert Churchward's brother, James Churchward. Right? It was a book on Mu. This is what he says. He said that according to traditional academic levels, or the books edited by Ivan von Sertima of Rutgers University in New Jersey. His books, all right, African Presence in Early America and African Presence in Early Asia are full of articles and photos that shows without a doubt that the Negroes have lived literally all over the world, including ancient Americas. So, all right, so you get the book, The Hidden Life in Freemasonry, right, by C.W. Ledbetter, 33 Degrees now. And he's gonna break down to you what we're talking about here. Listen to what he states, all right? That Pygmy race is a relic of the old Lemurians and represents them more purely than any other people. The Lemurians were at one time a gigantic people. You heard that? I just showed you and told you about how that footprint got in South Africa on that rock. And you see how big that foot was, all right? But in the process of dying out, they diminished in size. The African Bushmen are also remnants of the same race, but with very mixed blood Now, where did mixing come from? That's the question. Let's go on. And the same thing is true of those who are usually called the Australian Aborigines or Aboriginals, except that in this case, there is a very light admixture of Aryan blood. At one time, the Pygmies were spread all over a great deal more of Africa than at present, and some of them were the first people to enter Egypt. And we know that because you find the best statue in Kemet, right? In which that shows a Twa, or pygmy, as they refer to, it's a misnomer, and he sticks his tongue out, just like you find in Mexico, the Olmec calendar. The head that's in the Olmec calendar look nearly identical to the statue that you can find in the Cairo Museum of Best, of the portrait of Best, all right? In which that is of a Twa or pygmy. So James Churchward, in his book, Children of Mu, he claims that there were 64 million people who died in the sinking of Mu. Now, what is Mu? Mu is Hawaii. All right, the remnants of what we now call Hawaii. All right, and some of the southern Pacific area there is Lemuria or Mu. All right, and that's what is stated that the Pygmies was there on those islands. So here, the Pacific Island, Hawaii, are the remaining mountain peaks of the lost continent. Precise details maps of the lost continent of Mu and Atlantis were found on stone tablets from pre-Inca civilization in Peru. Now, who was pre-Inca? That's the Olmecs. The Olmecs were, has the oldest civilization, all right, in Mexico, which actually is part of North America, down into Central America and South America. The oldest civilization that they have found or discovered is the Olmec civilization, which they state only dates back 5,000 years. We say it dates back further than that, and we keep proving what we're saying. But here, Dr. Javier Gobera engraved a stone, a portrait by Robert Chorox, and that in 1972, the United Nations diplomat Farida Veyet, who was the assistant to the United Nations President Adam Malik, went to Maui, Hawaii, and researched the Lemurian ruins and history and concluded that they were real. So when we talk about people, this is the United Nations saying that Lemuria was real and that it was there in the Hawaiian Islands. When you see all these pictures about the Bimini Islands here in the eastern coast, eastern portion off the coast of Florida, down going towards Cuba, and you see that underwater city, that is the remnants of what we refer to as Atlantis. And the whole Caribbean islands was nothing more than the mountain peaks of what was once a landmass that was there. All right? Now, how did the Hawaiians originally look? Well, here they are. This is the first king, and this is the last queen. This is why the Hawaiians, which are now called the sovereign people of Hawaii, why they are fighting so hard now to reclaim their nationality. All right? Now, this is Kamehameha. That's who this is? No, it's not Uncle Ben from Off the Rice Box. All right? But that is Kamehameha. And he was the first great king who unified all of the Hawaiian Islands. All right? 1758 to May 8th, 1819. And by unifying the Hawaiian Islands, he formally established the Kingdom of Hawaii. So the sovereign Kingdom of Hawaii is what the people in Hawaii is attempting to bring back. And he did this in 1810. Now, the Hawaiian last queen, Liliuokalani, born was 1893, all right? Oh, well, I think she died in 1893. But it was the remnants, they stated it was the remnants of the people of Lemuria. All right, so you see how they look. All right, so we know that on this planet before 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, before the European or Albion even got and came upon this planet, we know that of his creation was that called the Tamahu man, or the Tamahu, which means the created ones. They was test tubes. They was drafted, as they would say, based on even the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, based on the teachings of the Adapt Chamber of Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Moral Science Temple of America, and the Nation of Gods and Earth teachings of the 120. All right. Now, we know that the original Australians, the original Asians, the original people of so-called Latin descent, the original Philippines, the original Indians, the original people of India, it was all said black people. All right? It was all black people. All right? You can get this from the book Sex and Race by J. Rogers, Volume 1. You can get it from the Missing Pages of History by Indo-Kemet Kush, and What They Never Told You in History Class by Indo-Kemet Kush. All right? They looked like you and I. Now, they also found the skeleton right here that dated back further back than what they told you about Dagnesh, which is nothing more than a hominid. All right, they took monkey parts, is the actual ape basically, but they call it Dagnesh, which they refer to as Lucy, which happens to be dated back to 2.8 to 3.2 million years ago, in which they say they found in where? Transvaal, they found it near Kenya in Tanzania, in between that region. All right. Now, right here we found in the British Museum in the basement, 28 million year old human skeleton. And guess where it was from? It was from the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe. 28 million years old. They hid it from us. It's in the British Museum in the basement. 28 million years old. And this is a human body. This is not an ape. This is before the ape species, as a matter of fact. The ape species only date back 20 million years ago. And some speculate that it's not even that far. We're talking about between 10 to 20 million years ago. All right? Now, in 1887, Florentino Amigione discovered apparently man-made heaps, and that primitive flint stones, carved bones, and moderate-looking human spine, all right, bone, in strata, and what is called Paleocene strata, is dated back to 3 to 5 million years old. All right, 3 to 5 million. And check this out. It says he also made similar finds in Miocene strata in Argentina, which dated back to 5 to 25 million years old. So this is right here in the Western Hemisphere that we are finding these bones. All right, and this is something that's phenomenal, y'all. 1894 and 1921, mineralogist and archaeologist William Nevin discovered ancient cities in Mexico that dated to the beginning of the Pleistocene era, which was 2.5 million years ago. Some cities were built further into what is called the Tertiary era. Beneath volcanic ashes, Nevin rediscovered over 260 stone tablets, as well as moderate human skulls, Negroid genetic markers. Nevin's Guerrero collection is now in the American Museum of Natural History and the Peabody Museum of Harvard University. So they found cities in Mexico that dated back more than 2.5 million years ago. Remember, they claimed that the Olmecs only dated back to 5,000 years ago. Sorry, this is a lie. Right here, 2.5 million years ago, the Olmecs was here. Sorry. So this is just some more lies that they've been telling us. So we have to bust this information out. This is why it's called the Aboriginal God Science, because we're trying to put all this information together that they've been hiding from us all these years. All right? United States Geological Survey excavated team led by Virginia Stein McIntyre in 1969, human habitation was found existing in Mexico for at least 250,000 to 350,000 years based on human artifacts and stone tools tested. All right, it goes on further. Check this out now. Stein McIntyre was told to change the dates and take a zero off, but she stood her ground and jeopardized her career. So they wanted to say, no, it wasn't 250,000 or 350,000 years ago. You take that zero, you take them zeros off, it was 25,000 and it was 35,000 years. You don't need them knowing that they was already here before the slave trade. Which is what, 400 years ago. But I just proved over 600 million years of history of you being here in the Western Hemisphere already. And it's only been what, 20 minutes. 600 million years, you was already here in the Western Hemisphere. All right, so the major problem with the previous analysis is that Homo sapiens already existed for hundreds of thousands of years before the Neanderthal. We know that, right? So that's a problem. How is that possible? Where did the Neanderthals come from? Because guess what? The Europeans and the Asians got 4 to 8% Neanderthal genes. And they happen to be the hybrids on this planet. Africans, less than 2% to no percent Neanderthal genetics. Therefore, we are the only original beings, as Elijah Muhammad stated and told us, already told us that we were. Who's the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe. All right? So, proving once again that life began in Africa from African people. Therefore, you still cannot get the origin of the Albion or albinos, the Asians, without the African. Thus, scientists state that Africans are the origin of the human race, and those that came from them afterwards are hybrids. However, there are some historians, scholars, anthropologists, archaeologists, scientists, biologists, biophysicists, etc., that will do anything and everything they can to disprove the so-called race connections. All right. Now they trying to say, oh well, the European, there's genetic markers of the Europeans. They now have O blood type, but they are Rh negative factor. They're Rh negative, meaning that they don't have any primate markers or antigens, which are bacteria within on their blood type. This is what they're saying now. So they're trying to claim that they're no, we are separate. Matter of fact, we're galactic. We come from outer space somewhere. And you know, you can't even get off. They never went to the moon. They can't even get off the planet. They can't go beyond the Van Allen belt. The scenes that they showed us from the moon lands and all that was done at Area 51.
Can't take the sun here. How they gonna get closer to it?
That's a good question, isn't it?
What's the question?
They can't take the sun here.
Well, good statement.
How they gonna get closer to it?
Right. Can't take it here. How they gonna get closer? They didn't have no melanin ships back then.
Oh, when y'all saw on Hidden Figures, how they was lying and didn't know nothing they was doing. Did y'all see that?
No.
On Hidden
Tell
Figures.
about Hidden Figures right quick.
Well, did y'all see Hidden Figures? Well, you didn't see it. Brother, on Hidden Figures, they had no idea what they were talking about. And the sister was up there they was looking at her like, yes, I can't believe she can do all of this without a calculator. And they was putting vents on the spaceship, and it was popping off, and it was underneath this pressure. They had no idea what they was doing. They had no idea. And y'all remember the first one they did was the Challenger. It was in 1985. It blew up. Y'all remember? Yeah. That was the first one that was televised, and none of them was televised after that.
Not anymore. Right. So what they found out is that there was a so-called brother right here in South Carolina. His name is Albert Perry. Check this out now. Right here in South Carolina.
What'd he do?
All right. The brother passed away, but researchers discovered an unusual, distinct Y chromosome. Now, Y chromosome is the male chromosome. Now, check this out. While all humans have previously been traced back to one common ancestor referred to as Adam, DNA technicians trace Perry's lineage to a much earlier time. It means that Perry and others with the same distinct Y chromosome found in the small area of Cameroon, Africa, but he was right here, but this is where he was. He was here. So that gene, that same gene marker that we're talking about that came from Africa was right here in America. That they didn't bring us though. Sorry, this was all before. I'm gonna show you how this was before 400 years ago. Check this out. They said actually are not descendants of Adam. All right. Their origin pushed the dawn of humanity back 140,000 to 338,000 years, or 70% earlier than previously estimated, according to the study. All right. So Europeans, Albion, archaeologists such as Josh Ross Hamilton, who we met, Ross Hamilton, he wrote a book. He wrote traditional book on giants. All right, or heritage on giants. He wrote another book on the Serpent Mound in Ohio. Actually, he is the one of the curators or tour guides of the Serpent Mound in Ohio. All right, that's in Adams County. So he told us to our face that we was the people who built this mound.
Sure did.
That we was the mound builders.
And he needed our help. You know, I don't need no microphone.
Okay, well,
but that's what he said. He said, we can't get it to take off and we need y'all's help to activate it. Because we know y'all created it.
Ask him what it was. He said it was a crystal spaceship underneath the Serpent Mound in Ohio. And he said, we need y'all to activate it.
Sure did.
Because y'all created it.
Sure did.
That's what he told us. Now, this is a European. All right, I still got the footage to this day on my computer. All right, so him and other archaeologists have already revealed that the first Americans were native indigenous black aboriginals who built ancient mounds, advanced civilizations, stone rock sculptures, and indulged in high sciences of star observation, earth consciousness, nature-based living, cosmological admiration, mathematical computations, time references, etc. So so-called black people in North America are the natural descendants of the great spirit walker ancestors. You are what your forefathers and foremothers were. All right. So this goes back to the debate that I had with brother Seti back in 2009. All right, 8 years ago. But many don't know that we've been doing this work since 88. All right, 1988, when I started teaching. All right. Dr. Antonio Youssef Ben Jacqueline, who we know as Dr. Ben, right? He received a doctoral degree in cultural anthropology and Moorish history from the University of Havana, Cuba, and from the University of Barcelona, Spain. And in his book, Cultural Genocide, this is what I showed up on the screen, Cultural Genocides in the Black and African Studies curriculum. All right, he mentions Moors. First, as a few of the names we was called with honor by the ancient Asians and Europeans, thousands of years before the Western Europeans knew that Americas existed. Stated the term Moors was used thousands of years before, all right, by the Europeans who was originally there. Now, if you go to the book Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers, he'll tell you that the original Asians and the original Europeans were who? You. You was the original Europeans and original Asians before the Europeans even got on the planet, which only goes back to around 6,000 to 10,000 years ago since the last ice age. All right? Get Chancellor Williams' book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. This is what he says. Now, again, just who were the Moors? The answer is very easy. The original Moors, like the original Egyptians, were Black Africans. An amalgamation became more and more widespread. Only Berbers and Arabs and coloreds in the Moroccan territories was called Moors, while the darkest and the black-skinned Africans were called Blackamoors. Eventually, Black was dropped from Blackamoor, all right? In North Africa and Morocco in particular, all Muslim Arabs, mixed breeds, and Berbers are readily regarded as Moors, having had even this name taken from them, must contend for recognition as Moors. That's deep. Right? Now that makes sense, because when we find individuals such as Dr. John Henry Clark in his book, The African Columbus and the African Holocaust, if you get that book, he speaks about how the empire called Kushite Empire, all right, and how part of that Kushite Empire, how that developed into the Malian Empire, which became known as the Moroccan Empire, all right? And that as Columbus was sailing over here, he seen ships coming back, going back into Africa from America. So we was doing import and export trade already with our brothers and sisters in Africa. So this is why, if you're talking about over a period of time, why we have people want to say that you don't look like a Native American to me, you don't look like an Indian to me. Well, that might be the case. However, let's continue seeing what really is the cause of this. Ancient and Modern Britons, page 374, book written by, what is his name? Oh man, what is his name? Mac Ritchie. David Mac Ritchie. Thank you. David Mac Ritchie, volume 1 and volume 2. But in volume 1, I think it's Ancient and Modern Britons, page 374. This is what he wrote. He says, in 1670, let me go further up. The Englishmen who had colonized the western shores of the Atlantic, not more than a generation or two before Crows, spoke of Indians there as being as black as gypsies. Now, if you don't know what the word gypsy means Egyptians. That was a European phrase because they didn't want to put the E on it, so they just said gypsies instead of Egyptians, so gypsies. In 1676, the native race of New England was spoken of indifferently as Indians, and Moors. Therefore, gross is virtually telling us that large company, now check this out now, all right? And our British Indians will also remember it as Moors. And this is shown in the movie Black Knight with Martin Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the whole movie, he was called what? You Moor. So it goes on, it says, therefore, gross is virtually telling us that large companies of Moors or black people roamed up and down the country rather more than 100 years ago, taking very consideration of considerable contributions from the foreign class and others. Besides being possessed of many fierce and aggressive qualities, it says, as these Moors at that quite recent point had not relinquished the custom that distinguished the black people against whom Caesar fought, those 18th century Moors were also painted people. The distinguished war paint of the 18th century Moors, Indians, or Moors. Now this is what is quoted. Now how is that possible? But check this out. Let's continue on. So this is an article called Black United States Indians and Polio-Americans. Polio-Americans is a classification term given to the first people who entered and subsequently inhabited the American continent during the first glacier episode of the later Pleistocene period. They are known to be Black Polynesians and Australoids. In other words, Australians. All right? But since those people are genetically remains phenotyped indistinguishable from the black people still in Africa, it makes Africa a possible direct source of Polio-Americans also. Those people termed Native Americans are later Asian migrants to the Americas. This group would include East Asian blacks such as the ancient Shang and Jomo, but perhaps more numerously the Mongol type people and incredibly European type albinos. For let us not forget that the European albino is in fact a Central Asian, and they were known to wander all over Asia before migrating in masses to Europe. So, of course, when you do your research and you find where the Caucasus Mountains are located at, where's that at?
Yep,
In between, right.
Asia and matter of fact, I just recently looked at that. They right there at the top.
Right, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. That's where, right between those two seas, is where the Caucasus Mountain is located at.
And that's what the Quran meant, how they was hinged in. That's what made me go back and look. Because they had, that's why they built that wall.
Right.
Then close to another, some kind of way that's blocked off on the other side, and water just to the back side.
Right. The original Turks' responsibility, who was so-called black people, was they were supposed to have kept them out. All right, or kept them encircled. Right. They was there for 2,000 years, according to Honorable Elijah Muhammad. All right.
Why were they even created?
Well,
Well,
for slaves.
right. They were slaves. Right.
So then this is karma.
Right.
What our behind getting hands to
Well, put it this way: Lulu Amilu is the name used by Zechariah Ascension in his books, The 12th Planet, and he states that they was made to be slaves, as the brother said. All right. But they want you to think that that was part of your ancestry too. No, I just showed you that you was already on the earth for 2.8 billion years. Now remember, the earth is only 4.5 billion. So you've been on the earth at least more than half of the earth existence. And if you want to know the truth, it goes back to what Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that you actually have no set birth record. All right. So that's just really the truth of the matter. So here, so it should come as no surprise that they crossed the Bering Strait into the Americas along with the Asian blacks and Mongol. It is also indistinguishable that the great majority of Northern Americans, which is Native Americans or mulattoes, anciently derived from the Mongol stock, the black stock, and the Europeans. Thus, it cannot be gauged how much mixing occurred between the very first Mongols getting here with the blacks who was already here, and then afterwards the Europeans, in which that now form what they call the Native Americans. But in that sense, but based on definition, let's give it that. There is just no way that it can be sufficiently to be thoroughly infused Native American with European phenotypes or genotypes. Thus, the inescapable conclusion is that the mixing of European albinos, Mongols, and blacks, which creates the Native American mulatto, occurred before European albinos reached the Americas from Europe. You heard that? However, an enduring mystery is why pure Mongol type people mostly appeared in Central and South America, despite the fact that they obviously entered the Americas by way of the Bering Straits. So it goes on. The people migrated from Central Asia. This dates back to only 13 to 16,000 years ago. How long was you here in the Americas? We already stated that you was already here over 600 million years ago as the Paleo-Americans, as the first inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere, of the Americas. The Asian strand just came here 1,300 to 1,600 years ago. And guess what? They're not the Asians in which that you're thinking of today, because those Asians came by way of the African Bushmen. If I put up a picture of the Bantu people, you would see that their eyes are slanted and the eyelids are infold, just like the Asians.
Mm-hmm.
This is their origin, right?
And then the Xi'an.
Right, the Xi'an, right.
Yeah.
Right, the Xi'an, which is from the Bantu, the Xi'an, all of them is the same people, right? The San people, you know what I'm saying, as they refer to as. And this is where they come from, the Mongols, all right, or the Mongolians, all right? So, in his book by Robert Knox, it says, the race of black men, the dark races of men in that chapter, this is on page 148. Check this out. After some 4,000 years of historical period, all we have is a chronicle full of errors, falsehood, unintelligible, incomprehensible races still on the earth. Of their ancient history, absolutely nothing is known, nor does it matter in what region of the globe we first view them. They are confined to no particular zone. They spread it as to where from pole to pole, from the Arctic to Antarctica. If the Lapps be a dark race, then their dark race exists in Europe as a race. Asia abounds with them. Africa has always been considered their stronghold. Check this out now. From the Mediterranean shores of Cape L'Agulles, the thick lips as Copts and Bohemans of all shades but fair prevails throughout. But it is in America, the last discovered by the so-called civilized European, where we find the stronghold of the colored race. So this was the last place that when they came over, because they knew we was everywhere else that they went. They seen us everywhere. But when they got here, they was like, God damn, we just can't get away.
No, that goes back to the Great Earthquake.
Right. And that was the Great Earthquake. That's mentioned in chapter 47 in the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, in what is called the Circle 7. All right? In the Circle 7, you will find in chapter 47 where it speaks about Egypt. being the dominion, the capital of the dominion. And the dominion is spread all the way from Africa into Mexico. And it says, even before the great earthquake, talking about before the land masses broke apart. So this is what it said, is that the landmass was broke apart by a great earthquake, which had caused the continental drift or caused the titanic plates to separate. But it's right there.
Here when it came.
Right.
See, because it really was one landmass. If you look at it in that sense, what they did when they came, they split up in these different regions or places, and we got confused. So we don't even recognize who we is as a people.
Exactly. And I can show you exactly how it looked based on what they taught us.
Look like people from Kenya. Who is that?
See, I mean, this
Name
is
just mentioned
Yeah,
Sand
that's the sun. That's the sand people.
people.
the San people.
Right, that's the San people. All right, right. That's the info of the islands that we're talking about right there. That's the origin of the so-called Mongolians. All right. Y'all see this? This is the land masses, how they all look when they was together. Matter of fact, you can still put them all together now. Can they see it?
Pangea, y'all seen that before.
Right, everybody's seen the pictures of Pangea. All right, so this is how it looks. So this is what we're talking about here. All right, so let me get back down. Right, so in the case of the American Negro, for the moment you are born, every stick and stone, every face is white. Since you have not yet seen the mirror, you suppose you are too. It comes as a great shock around the age 5, 6, or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with, well, actually it's a banner, has pledged along with everyone else, has not pledged allegiance to you. All right, well, that's because you're not a citizen of the so-called United States. The 14th Amendment was never fully ratified. It had to be ratified by 2/3 of Congress, and it never was. And the real Congress, which is called the Congress Assembly, was never put back into session after the Civil War. So that's why they call themselves now, what? The United States Congress. But it's not the United States Congress Assembly or the Congress of the United States. All right? So that's the thing. When you see the word of, that is a clue in order to clue you into that there's some fraud in which that is taking place. All right? That there's a de facto jurisdiction that has been formed. Because a de jure jurisdiction, which means real law as compared to fictitious law, which is the de facto, you would be able to see the difference. For example, it would not be the county. What's this county? Richland, right? So you go down to the courthouse. What do they put on their forms?
Richmond County. Some of them have County of Richmond.
Right. Some of them have the County of Richmond. That's the de facto. All right. Richmond County would be the de jure, which is under the Republic, because based on the Constitution, right? The Constitution states that there's only one form of government, and that is a Republican form of government. There is no democracy. The word democracy comes from the Greco-Roman Latin word, which is democracy. Yeah. Democracy, which means what? Ruled by demons.
Mm-hmm.
Ruled by demons. In other words, the mob rule in the allegory. All right?
And that's why they got these chemtrails going on, and the food ain't right. They're making rice and out of plastic. You know, that only demonic people can do that. They pushing this pedophilia foolishness. They trying to be intimate with your children. Don't believe me, go look on Facebook. They say heterosexuals want each other, homosexuals want each other, heterosexuals want opposite, and the pedophiles want children. You know, so this is definitely a rule by demon. And that's why I'm so glad we have this space here, because who gonna fix it but us? And if not now, then when? That's why I'm so glad that Trump got into office, because he's gonna force us to come together. We are intelligent enough to think our way out of this situation. Are we not? Melanated man, y'all the smartest beings on the planet.
Amen.
Yeah, we the oldest.
I know we can do it.
We're gonna be forced to be stiff here.
Right.
Rebellious, hard men.
Is that what it is? Because we've been taught to be that then. Because they get our children at 5 years old, and then they start teaching them all these lies, and then we wondering why we can't control them.
And when I say that we the oldest men on this planet of all races, but we're not the oldest species or being on this planet. That belongs to y'all.
Okay,
The
so then maybe
sisters.
the sister's supposed to do it.
All right? No. Y'all granted us some type of power in this, and we appreciate that.
Okay.
But we do have to do something. We can't be sitting back twiddling our thumbs. You know what I'm saying? You know.
Well, see, it seems like the brothers, y'all are together though. But can I say that the sisters are? I mean, in certain, y'all not together like that? Because that's what I was thinking too. Maybe that's why we still in the predicament, because sisters, we really don't, get along. Some of us. They say we can't live together, but I know that's what we were taught in Christianity. 2 women can't live in the same house. And then when your daughter get a certain age, she become a woman. It's a problem too. So maybe that's why, because the sisters need to fix it. But I know we down south and we got a lot of land, and I know that we can grow our own food. That's the solution.
I think we're missing the point.
Okay, what's the point, God?
When we separate like that,
Okay.
and
You're right about that.
when you move the flesh out the way, then you just spirit. Manifest level, then you look at it in a different way. Because I had presented this to several women. If the woman is who you say she is, and the way they did it, they put the children on the women, and then look at our society.
Right.
See, so we basically missing the whole point.
Right.
But anyway,
So what's the solution, God? Because that was a good point.
And that was shown to us in the book, the Willie Lynch. In the book Willie Lynch, it says that they was going to make the woman, a quote unquote B, and do it effeminize the male, and then make the female say that she don't need a man. And this is the whole program. The plan is right there in the Willie Lynch. Now, regardless on who wrote it, all right.
Oh yeah, this guy.
Right. We know it wasn't written probably during the time of Willie Lynch, but the programming is still from that time period. It hasn't changed. It's still valid in that sense. So the program is right there, So, brother, did you have a solution that you wanted to say?
Well, she asked me, I'm gonna tell you what Noah Jardy said. He said, this is something that can't be spoken in words, because it's something you have to deal with within yourself. And that's why I say once you see the real battle goes on within, and because of this manifest level we're on now, it's gonna take certain things to bring us together. That's why when she missing Trump. See, we don't do anything unless it's at the point of a gun. That's just like a woman when she gets dissatisfied with a man, he'll act like a soldier. The time she drop her guard, he go right back into how he was before. You see what I'm saying? So why we have to always be under that? See, so we're gonna be forced to do something which is already innate in us to do anyway.
That's true. Well, this is my solution. There's 9 battlefronts that was told to us by Dr. Neely Fuller and Dr. Frances Quest Welson in her book, The ISIS Papers. And Dr.
Amos Wilson.
Well, Amos Wilson also speaks about the economic program, which is in his book, Black Power, Blueprint to Black Power. But the thing is that there's 9 battlefronts. You have economics, politics, labor, sex, law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Education, entertainment, we say health, as well as also land issues is thrown up in there too. But there's a 9 battlefront that we have to galvanize against. And there's a counter front that we have to set up, some type of precedents that we have to set up in which that does and have an action against each one of those fronts, because there's loopholes in their system. in a de facto system. Okay, how many 2 million laws is on the books? Most of it is colorable law. Most of it is statute, codes, rules, regulations, ordinances. It doesn't have nothing to do with the Constitution. So therefore, it's null and void, even based on what the Constitution states in Article 6. Right? Article 6 states specifically that the supreme law of the land is the Constitution, its laws, and treaty. And what's the longest standing treaty that all the presidents have told you since Clinton?
Treaty of Peace and
The Treaty of Peace and
or the Mary
Friendship.
Kush thing.
Exactly, the Marrakesh Treaty. Exactly. That's the longest standing treaty. Why they keep mentioning that? Because they're trying to give you a loophole. They're trying to tell you a loophole. This is what Prophet Noble Ali meant when he said that that we signed a treaty and it was for 50 years. Well, remember, every 50 years, that treaty had to be what? Renewed. All right? And allegedly, since 2004, it has not been renewed. But yet, you had Obama to keep mentioning it and showing you the flag throughout his 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's something going on with that. I know the last time me and my wife went to the United Nations, the whole delegation of Morocco was there. And they wanted to talk to us, sit us down, and they wanted to have all these conversations with us, trying to tell us what was going on. Because we had the president of the Indigenous Affairs of Morocco to come to our United Nations meeting, and he said it plain and clear. We are in your land. We have your flag. You have our flag. How you got it? Well, remember, the United States gave them the flag in 1956. The same flag that Prophet Noble Ali flew, and which Prophet Noble Ali stated that he got during the time of Woodrow Wilson or Calvin Coolidge, based on which one that you read about. But that was supposed to be in the early 1900s. And he went to the Washington, D.C., and you told him that y'all have it. It's probably in the closet somewhere. You know, they went to the closet, found it, and that's supposed to be the flag on which that we have, which is the what? Cherry background or red background, 5-pointed star green with the black border. That is red, black, and green, the same colors in which that Marcus Garvey flew. Reason why we accept Marcus Garvey as the forerunner as Moors, right? Because he spoke primarily about nationality. You know, Negro wasn't a nationality. That's why it's called nationalism. Because nationalism means that you have to be nationalized. Nationality. This is where this is why it was important that Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, former president, he signed in December the 16th, 2010. He signed onto he signed the United States Corporation onto the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. And Article 5, now it's Article 6, states specifically that Indigenous people have the right to a nationality. All right? If you get Article 5 of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, written in 1948 from the United Nations, it states, everyone has the right to a nationality. So this is about nationality, no doubt about it. It has been told to us at a national level. It's been told to us at an international level. Okay, so this is partially what we're doing tonight, is just showing how far we go back within this hemisphere. All right, so in this article, yes, go ahead.
The interview, if y'all saw it with Muhammad Ali's son. The interview with Muhammad Ali's son, since he mentioned nationality, when they asked him who he was, he said Muslim. Mind you, they got his passport and they looking at it, but he said Muslim. So he said they stopped him because of his Muslim name. It was really about nationality, because they understand what he's saying. So they just held him for the fun of it, right, you know, because Muslim's not nationality. That's not nationality.
That's a religion.
So, yeah, so I don't know what he got on it as far as nationality, but they know that what he said wasn't him.
Well, see, if you remember now, remember Muhammad Ali followed after Elijah Muhammad's son. You know what I'm saying? He didn't go with Minister Farrakhan. He went with Wafdi Muhammad. So they called themselves the Bilalians.
Yeah, Bilalians.
All right? That's what they call themselves. Well, Bilalian is not a nationality, because the only proof of Bilal existing is within the hadiths. And hadiths are words of men. And it's just like if I say a word in this sister ear, she passes around to my wife and goes around the whole room. By the time it gets back to me, it's going to be some subtle changes that just happened. And that's just within this little small room of us here. We did that all the time in order to see, and every time somebody would add a word in, a or the, or it would never be the same. Okay? So that's the thing we got to look at also. But here we have an article, who lived in America 50,000 years ago? Who lived in America 50,000 years ago is the question. Well, we already showed you who was already here 600 million years ago. So 50,000 years would correlate with the same information, wouldn't it?
Yep.
So we'll find out. Let me go here. Boom. The Olmecs had a well-developed religion, complete with an interpretation of the cosmos and several gods. To the Olmecs, there was three parts of the known universe. First was the earth. Then there was where they lived. It was represented by the Olmec dragon. The watery underworld was the realm of the fish monster, and the sky was the home of the bird monster. In addition to these three gods, researchers have identified 5 more. The maize god, the water god, the feathered serpent, which of course is Quetzalcoatl, Gutumas, Verakash, Kukulkan, the banded eye god, and there was were jaguars, all right, Balaam, Ish. Some of these guys, such as the feathered serpent, which lived in the religion, or in the religions of later cultures, such as the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Incas, they also took all that information on. Now I'm saying this because if you get this book, let me show you, it's called The First Americans Were Africans. All right, it's written by David Imhotep. Okay? Now, excellent book. Might want to get it. But this is what is stated. A new book is contradicting what old grade school books or textbooks have included for years and could change the way history is written about the Western Hemisphere. In The First Were Africans, author and academic David Imhotep, PhD, is bringing forth decades of research and evidence to present readers with a comprehensive look into the history and identity of the first Americans. Asserting the Africans were the first Americans and that they arrived, he says, 51,000 years before the Mongolians, right? Imhotep illustrates a date that is 4 times earlier than what is largely referenced with Shu. If that's the case, we did, how many dates y'all think that we did here today already? And show you how long we've been here in the Western Hemisphere. All right, so here, Americans cannot have claim, Africans not only came before Columbus, but were the Americans long before any other group, at least 56,000 years ago, said Imhotep. With this book, I produce and expand on evidence that several scientific fields, credible scholars and professors and researchers. Well, hopefully he'll see this videotape. All right. Imhotep extensive research and gathered evidence is a part of a product of his academic training, university level teaching, and extended world travel. See, this is the thing. That's why he had to stay within the confines of the article that I just showed you. Who was here 50,000 years ago? So that was dealing with academics, right? Well, we're not dealing with academics in that sense. We're going back to scholarship, still scholarship, because we showed you the forbidden history, forbidden archaeology. We showed you the book of the hidden history of the human race. We showed you all of this, all right? However, he had to stay within the confines of academic training, all right? So, good book, helps to expand the mind, you know what I'm saying? You know, he comes in, he said, first from 25,000 to 15,000 BC came the Australoids, probably preceding the Negritos. And there remains a recognizable and very, now remember, if you're talking about Australians or Australoids, which is Australia, then that means that they came from Asia in that sense. That's what he's saying, all right? So this is where Honorable Elijah Muhammad gets that from, about that we are Asiatics, all right, because of that heritage. And I'll show you that also. Let me show you. That information. Let me go continue on. Let me show you this. All right, according to the book, Souza Economics, The History of Pan-African Trade, Economics, Money, and Wealth, These Blacks Found in the Americas. This is a book. It is written by First Books Library, states, the mound builders, they were dark-skinned, woolly-haired blacks who was indigenous natives to North America, akin to the Olmecs of South America. The Olmecs and Washita, Black Californians, Yamasee, the Nami, and other pre-Columbian blacks of the Americas were part of a prehistoric trade network that began in Africa and spread it worldwide over 100,000 years ago and at various periods afterwards. So that means we was already doing trade, ship routes, vessels over 100,000 years ago. All right? This is what Richard Nave shows you. All right? University of Manchester. At the University of Manchester, he shows you the head that he put together of the first American. Who that look like?
You.
They see it?
It looks like us.
Right. And this is Richard Naves. Now, how is that? Well, this is what it says. Naves further points out that the Aboriginals found in North America resembled what currently could be described as African American. You didn't know it was you, he just said it. He just said it. Hold on, let's read that again. Things your DNA company forgot to tell you. That's the name of the article. Nave further points out that the Aboriginals found in North America resemble what currently could be described as African Americans, an unresolved, all right, morphological position, moderate South Pacific and Europeans. It says researchers from Spain, Mexico, Argentina wrote an article which also acknowledges that the Paleo-Americans did not look like moderate American Indians. In other words, did not look like the Mongolians that they kept showing you pictures of, but look like who?
You. Mm-hmm.
Let's continue on. The Paleo-Americans are classified phenotypically as African, Australians, and Malaysians based on multi-variances methods and qualitative analysis. This grouping should only be sub-Saharan African and Australian populations because the Malaysians and the sub-Saharan Africans share the same measurements, which is talking about the head. And the cranial matrix illustrates that the Paleo Indians belongs to the black variety, but they do not allow us to establish conclusively where the Paleo-Americans originated. Some researchers believe that the Paleo-Americans came from East Asia. Uh-oh, that would be go back to
and talk
the Moorish, right? The Moorish Science of America states that we are Asiatics. The Nation of Islam states that we are Asiatic. The Nation of Gods on Earth states that we are Asiatic. They just stated that we are what? Asiatic. So it says, came across the Bering Strait or from Europe because of the Sotran tools found throughout North America. These points of origination are unlikely because the ice shelf in the northern latitudes would have prevented passage from these destinations to South America, whose the oldest Paleo-American sites has been excavated. And I showed you some of the excavation 28 million years ago in Guadalupe. The most likely place for Paleo-Americans came from was Africa, which is closer to the Americans. That we are a nation. Everybody knows Sicily, right? All right, so that's who she looks like. She looks like Sicily. You put some hair on her, it's a wrap. And they call her Lucia. L-U-Z-I-A, Lucia. All right? That's the name of the one on, and it says here, 12,000-year-old reconstructed face from a skull found in Brazil. That's only 12,000 years. I didn't show you so many years ago and places and things that they found that they've hidden from us purposely. They don't want you to know. Remember, think about it. What would happen if you knew that this land was yours? Because remember, the KKK and others told you that you just came from Africa. Now we know Africa is ours because we still there. But they didn't tell you that this was yours too, which I'm going to verify because here go the books. Remarks on Sierra Leone. This is a book from talking about Africa now. Check this out. Now, why are they talking about Africa? Then slip this shit. Slip this up in here. I shall add another reflection. Says the blacks are a kind of men designated by nature to inhabit Africa and America. What? Hold on, wait. I shall add another reflection of public utility. The blacks are a kind of men destined by nature to inhabit Africa and America. She has created them for burning regions. Take care not to oppose her views. In other words, don't go and mess with them in their regions. Now, this is what the European was already saying over 100 some odd years ago, all right? And overthrow the barriers which she has established, but let us preserve their races in their natural purity and not permit the Negroes to inhabit Europe. So see, that's what they was concerned about. This mixture of black and white is dangerous to our people or population, and in time it may change, corrupt, and even destroy it. So you see why he had to put us up in there, because who else is just as dark nearly just as dark as the Africans? He just told you that it was Africa and America, right? So there's another book that you can get besides for First Americans Were Africans but you can get one by Nasir Ali, which is called The Paleo-Americans, a primer on African-American history. You can get this book. Okay? Once again, Aboriginal God science. That's what we're going over today. So here, Paleo-Americans are the Aboriginals, right? Are the Aboriginal inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere before the last ice age of 10,000 years ago. This is what the book says. Paleo-Americans look similar to the Australians, Aboriginals, Malaysian Negritos, and the Mansia Negrito. Paleo-Americans are the elders of America All right? Paleo-Americans are the mound builders of civilization of the North, Central, and South America. Now that also means of the pyramids. All right? So this is what the book goes into. Another good book is 103 Amazing Facts About the Black Indians of the Western Hemisphere, outlined by Kenyon. Right? And this is what the 103 Amazing Facts About the Black Indians of the Western Hemisphere outlined. Can everybody see it? It says right quick. Good information. So this is what it says. The reclaiming of the identity of the Black indigenous Indians in the Western Hemisphere region is not a difficult task. It does not require petitioning outside of yourself to someone else to acknowledge who you are. Well, I would like to put things on the public record. You know what I'm saying? That way they know who they messing with, because you want to leave a paper trail just in case your ancestors come behind you. They can find something in which that stated, you know what I'm saying? Just like they have the Dawes Roll, but what you left in order to prove who you are in history. All right? But it goes on. And if you go over here, it goes even further. Let me read this. Until recently, it is believed that the first humans crossed the Bering Strait 12,000 years ago and entered North America continent. You see, that's why they had the 12,000 years. Because this is when they claim that we just came over the Bering Strait. But remember, they already said also that because Africa could also be a possibility, and they sailed over here over 50,000 years ago. So you see how the date keep changing? So since they can play with the date, well, let's go back to the older information, which we already presented. Well, how about 600 million years ago? What would be the problem with that? Oh, no. Archaeologists have archaeologists have found sites from Argentina to Chile that ranges from between 20,000 to 40,000 years old. Additionally, there are numerous sites in South America which dates back over 35,000 years old. These are sites at Praja Furada, which dates back over 45,000 BC, and Serra de Capivara, which dates back over 50,000 years ago. Given the fact that the earliest dates for habitation of the American continent occurred below Canada in South Africa, suggests that the earliest American settlers came from Africa before the ice melted and after the Bering Strait, ice melted at the Bering Strait and moved northward as the ice melted. Okay. In the very ancient times, the American continent was inhabited, check this out now, by African blacks. Okay, and it says right here that C.C. McQuees, a Mexican archaeologist, all right, observed that it is good to report that long ago, the useful America was also a Negro continent. Good God Almighty. All right, noted that there was a probable movement of Negrito from Ecuador into the Pura Valley and north of Chicama and Vera in the earliest times. All right, so how many people was here? Okay, how many was here? It says 5 million indigenous Americans was present when Columbus arrived. Over 5 million, y'all. Prior to 1720, all right, it was the indigenous population. And then Africans imported from Africa from the slave trade came, which only accounts for 15% of that admixture, of this recent admixture. So we are Africans, but some of us was already here based on the dates that we went further back to. All right, that's how far our ancestry goes back here. So here you have, as we showed you, Pangea, with all the continents together, we have Africa, and they say that life emerged from, now this is based on the oldest fossil that they've found thus far, but we just showed you that there was a fossil that dated back 10 times further on the island of Guadalupe to 28 million years ago. But they tell you about Dagnesh, which is only 2.8 to 3.2 million years ago. All right, in Africa. They don't want you to know about the other fossils that they've found. So let's say we emerged from out of Africa and we moved based on the landmass, because you see where South America is. Actually, South America is still closest to Africa to this day. You can look on the map and see that. And think about how South America was right there in that cut on what is called the Ivory and Gold Coast of Africa. You can see that, all right? Right in South America where you have Venezuela, right where you have Brazil and all of that, you just fit that right up in there. You know what I'm saying? In Africa, and it fits perfectly, perfectly. So, all right. So, we want to definitely talk about that. So this is also what it said. It says, I have seen statuettes. This is from Man, God, and Civilization. All right, written by John G. Jackson. All right, John G. Jackson. Man, God, and Civilization. This is what he says. I have seen a statuette of Negroes in the archaeological collection of Mr. Ernest Franco in Ecuador. According to the opinion of the local archaeologists, the statuette is at least 20,000 years old. All right, the autochthonous black race in America was either gradually mixed with the Indian ones or became extinct. But in very remote times, Negroes or Negroids were numerous in the New World. Now being mixed, and we still here. Because they have to make you think that you just came from Africa 400 years ago. But once again, our genetic bloodline goes further back. Not saying that we did not mix with the 400-year-ago Africans. That is part of our genetic bloodline. But what if you was already here, as we already demonstrated in this lecture? Then now the things change, the tide changes. Because now you realize that there's a battle that you have to complete right here instead of just running off thinking that you're going to go to Africa and just deal with being African. But remember, Africa was also colonized. So you're not getting away from the European in any shape, form, or fashion. All right? Say something, brother?
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it from the perspective that it only took you from one part of your empire to another part of your empire, I mean, you know,
right.
you would see it totally different. That's like them taking me to any part of the world because I know who I be. I'm gonna claim my indigenous status on any part of the world they take me.
Right, because if you go to Black School Dictionary 4th edition, deluxe, if you look up land, embedded inside of the definition of land is the word Moors. So the word Moors and land are synonymous. So that means, just like the brother said, wherever you step your foot at on this planet, you can claim indigenous-ship and nationality. All right, no matter where you go. This is why this is from the Musi McCoy Museum. It's from the Musi McCoy Museum. All right, I don't know if y'all can see this. All right, let's read this right quick. This is Mongolian. All right, this is European. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, right here. This is who they refer to as European, Caucasian in this sense. All right. Right here, you have the Malaysian. Right here, you have the African, the Negroid. But guess who they refer to as the Australian, Australoid, the American. I didn't put that. There it is. Can y'all see it? What's that? Is that the top? Exactly, Australoid. And at the bottom is what? America. You think that's a coincidence? If you look up the term America in Webster Dictionary 1937 edition, it states that the Aboriginals are the copper-colored natives, the aboriginals, or the copper-colored natives who was found here before the settlement of their territory by the Europeans. So the only Americans actually are you. That's why they call themselves United States citizens. They are the 14th Amendment citizens that this fraud has been perpetrated against. You've never been part of it. They told you this in Dred Scott case decision. One of the foremost laws that they teach you about today. In there, Judge Taney stated his opinion that Negroes and those of African descent are not U.S. citizens, and nor will they ever be. But that's good. He just did me a favor.
And he went on to say that we don't have to respect you under our laws.
Right.
So he was letting you know that these laws is not yours.
Right. And so therefore, you have the right, based on the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, to form your own laws and courts, to have your own judges, your own magistrates, your own lawyers. You have that ability to do that. All right? You don't believe me? Well, ask Beeson. Y'all know who this is? We get ready to show you. I'll tell you. So-called Black Americans are not Indians. This is what he says. All right? But Aborigines. This Alabama Senator, Scott Beeson, is 100% right, as the native Mongolians came to America after our ancestors. So you look up Aborigines. It says Aborigines, a person, animal, or plant that has region or country from the earliest times, and Aboriginal inhabitants of Australia. I just showed you who they refer to as the Australoids in America was who? Now you look up America, you can go back to the 1849, 1859, 1854 Noah Webster Dictionary, and it says America, the Aboriginal or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. He goes on to say this is how it all got set up. All right, Alabama State Senator refers to blacks as Aborigines. This is actually Sunday, June 19th, 2011. It was 6 years ago. Alabama is currently going through a major federal corruption trial. And this is what it says. He goes on to say,
What's name is again?
Beeson.
Spell that.
Scott Beeson, B-E-A-S-O-N. Scott, S-C-O-T-T, Beeson, B-E-A-S-O-N. He was a former senator for Alabama. All right? This is the conversation that took place. Listen to this. All right? It says, that's y'all Indians. Listen to this now. He said, that's y'all Indians. And who said that? Republican Benjamin Lewis. Republican Benjamin Lewis. He said, that's y'all Indians. Talking about us, that we're the Indians. He said that. But Beeson goes on to say, they're Aborigines, but they're not Indians. Uh-oh. Goes on, Beeson responded. After the remarks became public, Beeson claimed that he didn't remember the conversation. I don't know why I said it. I don't know. Something must have got in me or something. I don't know where that came from. That's what he said, Joe. But Malcolm told us this, if you get the book, Black Man's History. All right? If you listen to the speech, all right, also Malcolm, 1962, he said, those people who were here before Adam has always referred to these people as Aborigines, which means what? Black folk. You never find a white Aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, and they always dark-skinned people. You and I are Aborigines, but you don't like to be called Aborigine. You want to be called an American. Aborigines usually mean from the beginning. Two Latin words, ab meaning from, origin means the beginning, and Aborigine is only the term applied to those dark-skinned people who have been on the earth since the beginning of the universe. You know that it's going way back. Do you know what I mean? Since the beginning of the universe? This is Malcolm. This is what Malcolm said. So why is Henry Louis Gates Jr. doing all these fraudulent DNA tests, trying to prove that you just came from Africa 400 years ago? And that you had, bingo, he's funded by the Ford Foundation. The same foundation in which that wanted to know what was going on with Malcolm, that Alex Haley talks about within the autobiography of Malcolm X. That brother Steve Coakley, who I knew personally, and I sat up under, who spoke about that, who told us that it was the Ford Foundation, who wanted to know what Malcolm was doing when he was traveling. So here it is, they were searching out in the 60s who was funding Malcolm. And here they have Henry Louis Gates, a first African-American to receive the Andre Mellon Foundation Fellowship, and has received 51 honorary degrees and numerous awards for his teaching, research, and development of the institution to study Black culture. He's a professor at Harvard, where he is the director of W.B. Du Bois Institute for Africans and African American Research. He also hosts several PBS television miniseries, which I'm pretty sure you've seen. All right, so, however, get these two books, and this explains to you who he is. All right, get these two books. Sell Out and the Black Bourgeoisie. All right, Steve Coakley told us that it was the Boule.
You mentioned W. Du Bois, and that told me.
Right, W.B. Du Bois was Boule. He was part of the New York chapter. Oh, so, so we find that 83% of all true Americans with African ancestry have Native American blood, or rather, we are the Native Americans with African blood. We are the Paleo-Americans, or Paleo-Americans that they spoke of. All right? So we had the first Americans, who we just gave the definition of. Then you have the so-called natives, all right, or Indians, right? And then you have the United States citizens.
What year dictionary that was again? 1839?
1828 and 1859.
What's the name of it? For the one about the Americans being carpenter? The dictionary. What's the name of that dictionary?
That's Noah's Webster Dictionary. Noah's Webster Dictionary.
About 1828.
Right, 1828 through 1859.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to end here. Are there any questions that we've gone about, anything that we've gone over tonight? Yes.
I just want to make a statement. You was talking about the gypsies earlier.
Right.
And it's interesting how, like, you go to other places in the world, they know more about us than we know about ourselves.
That's true.
I went to Paris 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing about the gypsies, they live on the streets out there.
Right.
But they were big and asked everybody for money. Brother walked by, although it's African people there. All right, when they would see us, anywhere we went through Paris, they would automatically turn and bow and would stop asking for money. I mean, which I found to be really profound. I asked this guy about it. He said they realized that y'all the ones in the West is actually already there, and what y'all came through the whole situation, through the 400, to keep going. And they said they can't even ask people like you for money because it's disrespectful to who they are. I found that real profound.
Gotcha.
They know who we are.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah.
I went to the British Museum. My wife and I went in 2008. All right, so we was right there in London. When we went to the British Museum, the curator of the museum, my wife was touching every relic she can get her hands on. Now there's a big old sign that says "Don't touch nothing." So he came over and said, "Man, you can't touch that." But when my wife turned around and said, it's been so long since I've been in the presence of, my African, relics and my African, because this is all Egypt now. As soon as you walk through the British Museum, it's nothing but Egypt. You gotta go in the back to see Samaria and all the other places. But all of this in front, as soon as you walk through, you talking about a statue that's about, over 50 some odd feet high, right here looking at you, of an Egyptian, all right, of a Kemet or Tamarian, all right. So she's touching these Egyptian relics like crazy, and the guy comes up to her and say, "Ma'am, you can't touch that." And she says, "But it's been so long since I've been in the presence of my ancestry," and so she's still touching it. And he just turns around and walks away.
Oh, wow.
And comes back 5 minutes later and said, "Ma'am, if you want to know where more of your ancestral things are, I advise you to go to Scotland." Scotland. So not only do the British Museum have stuff, so since he came back and told us all that, so I said, "Hey, can we go to the basement?" He said, "No, because the head curator is not here today. However, I can tell you this, that what you see here is only 20%. The other 80% is beneath in the basement." That's what he told us to our face. So we leave there. We go then to the United Grand Lodge of England. So here we are in the Grand Lodge of England now, one of the largest Freemasonic lodges in the world. And guess who gets us in there? My wife. Yeah, because what happened is that they was honoring women Masons that month. So we just happened to come when they honoring women Mason. So I told my wife, I said, "Yeah, tell them that you travel a long ways and you need to see their establishment." So she went in and said, because 2 brothers went in before, and they was getting ready to have a Masonic meeting, so they was not going to let us in it. So my wife goes in, and them brothers, both of them came out like, "Man, they won't let us in." I'm like, "I'll be there." So I tell my wife, "Go and tell them that you travel a long way and that you need," because I saw the sign. Oh, women Mason? Okay, word. You know what I'm saying? Because they always say about Annie Besant being a female Mason. So I said, "Okay, well, just go and tell them that you travel a long way and that you want to see their establishment." She went in there, told them that. Boom, next thing I know, she waving us in. Wow. So we go up in there. Me and the 2 brothers who brought us over there. So we up in there now. All right, so we go upstairs to there's separations. You have the museum portion and the library portion. So we was able to get in both of those. Why they had their Masonic meeting going on, because you seen European Masons coming from every direction. So as we got in there, he said, "How you feel about the possibilities of the first Black president?" Now remember, this was just days right before Barack became president. And we already knew he was going to become president, because even over there, they was damn celebrating harder than we were here. All right? That's how everybody wanted him to get in. So my wife turns around and said, "There was more than 9 before him." He jumps back. "Who told you that? You're not supposed to know that. Did they tell you that?" Did they tell us that? Who's the they? He's talking about his Masonic European Brotherhood over here. Did they spill the beans? Did they tell y'all that y'all are the original people here in the Americas? Did that happen? That's what he said. He said, "Who told you that? You're not supposed to know that." That's what he said. He said it just like that, that you're not supposed to know that. So this information I'm telling you, you're not supposed to know. He said, "Did they tell you that? I don't need them to tell us anything. We got enough information now. This bookstore here, you know what I'm saying? Our bookstore in North Carolina, sure, we got enough information now, you know what I'm saying, to know who we are without them telling us nowadays. We just got to tell our people, but they can break up out of the nonsense." Okay, so then we went to the library portion. I told him I want every book that you have on Prince Hall. Dude started typing away and he said, Mr. Bey, if you just go and walk around and look at things, he said, I'll come and bring you all the information I have on Prince Hall. He bought me more than like 4 or 5 pages of books on that they had right there in the Grand Lodge of England on Prince Hall. And he gave them to me. He said, Mr. Bey, next time you come to England, which we're going this year, he said, next time you come to England, and we're going back to the museum and back to the Grand Lodge. He said, next time you come, he said, tell us your location of where you be at, and we'll come and pick you up in a limousine. We'll take you to get something to eat and feed you and bring you to the museum, to the library portion of the Grand Lodge, and you can do all your research on all the books that you on Prince Hall. That's what he told us.
So they respected you more as a brother over there than
Bingo.
cats over here.
Bingo. And they wanted to share all this information with us. Since y'all already know, because somebody spilled the beans, might as well just go on and let it all out. Let the cat out the bag. That's what happened. You know, since my wife caused me and the 2 brothers, brother was standing here, brother Solomon was standing here, brother Darren was standing here, and I was standing on this side. My wife was standing right here. And when she said there was more than 9 before him, and dude was standing right here, and he jumped back with his hands up, and his hands were shaking like Mike Tyson hit him. And he was shaking like this, hands shaking. Said, who told you that? You're not supposed to know that. Did they tell you that? And so she spilled the beans.